Hello, everyone. Greetings and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so excited to have you tuning into our second roundtable, a part of our Sports Can Battle Racism SCBR series and intentional action steps. My name is Marty Reed, and I manage Positive Coaching Alliance's national and corporate partnerships. I'm also a PCA trainer, and I am the co-chair of our SCBR, Sports Can Battle Racism Committee. And in a minute, I'll be introducing our co-host and my co-chair for this event, Trennis Jones, to lead our panel discussion today with our special guests. For those of you who joined us during the last roundtable, welcome back. And for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. We are Positive Coaching Alliance, and we're on a mission to develop better athletes, better people through our leadership in education and social emotional learning and teaching life lessons through sports. We're using our platform, our national platform, to support and educate and amplify voices of change and unity and equality and inclusion. And our theme for today's roundtable on how sports can battle racism is Sports Do. Define, unity, and power, why starting young matters. So it is our pleasure to host these roundtables in supporting coaches and administrators, parents, and athletes to take an active role in ending bigotry and hatred using sports as the vehicle for positive change. So we all know that this work and this solution isn't going to happen overnight, but we are committed, and we appreciate you all for your commitment as well. So with today's special guest, I must also mention acknowledging, the WNBA and the NBA for being leaders for social justice. And we are so excited to have you all joining us today. So quick house rules before I pass it over to Trennis. You'll all be on mute throughout the conversation, but feel free to send in questions in the Q&A section, and we'll do our best to get to them throughout the conversation. So thanks again for joining us today. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our moderator, who will be introducing our special guest and leading the panel discussion. He is the co-chair of our SCBR committee and the regional director of our PCA Central Texas region. So Trennis Jones, take it away.
Thanks, Marty. I appreciate it. Welcome to everybody. Thank you for taking the time this afternoon for this important conversation, or continuing this important conversation. As she said, we believe at PCA that sports can battle racism, and we know that a big element about positivity is honesty, and so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be authentic. We're trying to make sure that voices and perspectives are shared, so all of us can be operating under the same set of facts and seeking curiosity into other people's perspectives, and specifically, as she shared, why we feel like sports can be a great way to amplify and improve our society, but specifically youth sports. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our esteemed panel. We'll have one panelist that will be joining us a bit later, but we'll jump into the conversation, and she'll join as she joins. So want to first start off by introducing Miss Ruthie Bolton, who is a Olympic gold medalist, is a proud mother, Mississippi's finest, and certainly a WNBA all-star, and has been doing great work while she was playing, but also when she stopped playing, at the end of her career. And so my first question to Ruthie, and the way that we're going to introduce people is me introducing them, and we'll have one question for them, and then we'll move on to the larger conversation. But Ruthie, as one of 20 siblings, 20 kids in your direct family, how were you able to find your voice and use your voice to support others in and amongst 19 other kids?
Being the strongest, but honestly, flexing up a little bit. We grew up in my father was a minister. I'm a PK kid. So we grew up in a very disciplined home, and And my dad would always say, he said, I love all of you all the same, but you bring home your own report card. And so he would talk about having your own identity, but also what is it that, with me, I was a serious tomboy and I love playing football. I would play when my parents would leave. But I love being able to, my family just gave me an amazing foundation. And I know that we're going to be talking about racism, and I just want to share this real quick. My dad, we would watch the show Roots, and we would watch it. He would always say, you can watch that and be mad and go to school and get in trouble if you want to. He said, you come home, it's going to be major consequences. So he said, he taught us early. And we used to get mad, like, why can everybody else fight and we can't fight? So he just really told us early. He said, racism is ignorant. So, but just from big family, I think just having this, I was a quiet girl, but I had this tenacity and determination to just be the best I could be. And another way I stood, I was a twin. I'm the only twin in the family. I have a twin brother. And I always talk about him when he's not here. He used to be mad at me because I was stronger and quicker. So he would throw rocks at me. And guess what? I said, well, that's what you get. That's why you end up a cheerleader and I end up a two-time Olympian. So he hates when I talk about that. He's not here to defend himself. But I had a really amazing foundation, and just really being able to create my identity as an individual in a family of 20. Being strong physically and being strong mentally helped me.
Thank you for that, and thank you for being here.
Yes.
Moving on to our next panelist, Mr. CJ Paul, who's the president of CP3 LLC. CJ is a proud son of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. CJ played collegiate basketball at the University of South Carolina upstate, as well as Hampton University and HBCU. He is the proud father of two children as well. They're twins, aren't they, CJ?
My girl twins.
Okay.
And, yeah, and he obviously his brother is Chris Paul, who's obviously a future Hall of Famer, and a lot of the work that is being done around Chris first has to be done with CJ and through CJ. And so any foundation that, the Chris Paul family foundation that they have established serving the community, comes through CJ. So he has that unique perspective of a person that's both played, but then been in the boardroom as well. So welcome, CJ. Question for you. Obviously, you and I have known each other a little bit, for a while, since, 2005 or so. And so your family has always, at least in my opinion, and certainly many others, represented integrity and community. And so how have you felt like you've been able to use, and your family has been able to use, athletics to personify, what those things, what integrity and what community means?
I think it started when we first started playing sports. So our dad got us in sports. I guess I was 5 and Chris was probably 3. And he put us in a league around Black and brown kids. So we played one year in that. And then he took us to a YMCA where we played with, Black, white, Asian, all shades. So he basically taught us at an early age that, this is going to be your community. So you guys are going to have to live with it. So that's what we did. And I just feel like our parents showed us, like, we grew up in the suburbs of Winston-Salem, but our family lived, in the inner city. So it was basically like, when we was around family, we was in the inner city around Black and brown people. But when we went to school, we was around, our high school was 10% white. So we kind of got the best of both worlds, but we always knew once we had a chance that we wanted to give back to our community, because our community is what needs it.
Thank you for that. Thank you for being here, CJ. It means a lot. Lastly, but certainly not least, Mr. Lanny Smith. Full honesty, Lanny and I first met when I was trying to recruit Lanny to represent or be part of his representation when he was playing at the University of Houston. Lanny is obviously a standout on the basketball court, He also runs a multi-million-dollar Christian-based athletic apparel company called Active Faith, and not only runs but founded it. I remember him calling me and being like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "I don't know." But years later, here we are. So Lanny has, was on the court, had an injury to his foot that kind of sent, his professional career into a different space, certainly than he thought it was going. But here he is, still involved in sports, still involved in athletics, and still making his mark, even though it wasn't what he thought it would be at that moment. And so, Lanny, I know that obviously you've overcome a lot of things. You're overcoming a lot of things. But my initial question for you is certainly you've been blessed with a lot of experience and talent. But specifically, what inspires you to continue to grind through some of those obstacles and make sure that you are representing yourself, but also making sure that you're making a better place for kids that look like you, that are coming behind you?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, and you've met my mother, so you know the amazing person that she is. Seeing her strength and her success firsthand in my household growing up. My mother comes from a small town, Gina, Louisiana, where both of her parents didn't go past the 4th grade. You know what I mean? But they worked hard to provide her the opportunity to get an education. She was the first in the family to graduate from college, became a computer programmer, and is one of the top computer programmers in the city of Houston. So when I think about the amount of women who were in that field at that time, which was next to none, and the amount of Black women on top of that that were in that field, for her to rise and to be one of the top computer programmers in the city of Houston, I witnessed that. I'm growing up with that hero in my home. You know what I mean? So that type of inspiration always kind of gave me that freedom to dream big and to chase after, whether it was the NBA when I was growing up and now building these brands and these companies. I think that for me, why it's so important to be that representation, especially for kids who look like me, is while sports is great, and I think sports, has instilled so many of the qualities and characteristics that I've been able to carry over into other parts of my life. I think people that look like me, young Black boys and girls, sometimes view sports as their only way out or their only escape or their only path to success. And there can be a little danger in that, you know what I mean? So as you mentioned, I was seemingly destined for the NBA, had an injury that derailed my career. And you think, well, how many little Black boys and girls are thinking that this dream is going to be what's going to allow them to take care of their families or to rise above their current situations? But you don't calculate situations like injuries or things like that that could derail that. So for me, being able to transition into business and showing people that look like us, hey, we can do more than just, be athletes, or if you are an athlete, use that to help you into launching off other things. That's very, very important to me. So
that's good stuff. That's real good stuff. And I'll follow up with that question, certainly around athletics and sports. What were you able to glean and take from athletics in terms of developing your confidence and whether you can make it through, or how do you grind through certain moments? What did athletics do for you in that space?
Yeah, I think one of the things is it developed a certain perseverance, because no matter what sport you play, at whatever level, sports is going to be there's built-in obstacles that you're going to face when playing sports, and a lot of times sports can reveal the character that you currently have, or it can help develop that character when you have to face those obstacles, whether it's the opposing team, all the things that you have to go through, just even in training to be able to perform at the level that you want to perform. There are all these different obstacles that you are going to have to face. And I think that just parallels life and business and everything else. And so I think at an early age, knowing that you can overcome those things and be successful, and you see those little steps of success, they all build upon each other and create that confidence that you have in yourself that you can then apply to other parts of your life.
That's great. Ruthie, please speak to that, especially as a Black woman. why confidence is so important to you and how you were able to gain it.
Oh yeah, and Lenny, thank you. I love when a man talks about his mom. It means a lot. It's a reflection of you and how much what you've done in life. So thank you for giving her props for that. Appreciate that. But just growing up in a big family, and I'm gonna try to tell this little story quick. It's about jumping fences. And I was a tomboy. I didn't want to know anything about cooking, and I wanted to jump fences. So I had jumped this fence before. And as I proceeded to jump this fence one day, it seemed like it got taller and taller. And I was like, oh my God, what is happening? I've jumped this fence before, because we lived on about 10 acres. So I could see, we jumped a lot of fences. And I pondered with that fence for about 10 minutes. And I could see my cousin saying, come on, don't worry about it. You can do it. So we know you've done it before. I'm like, no, I can jump this fence now. I pondered with that fence, and then the street light came on. And we know what that meant back in the South. You had to be in the house in 5 minutes, you had to be inside. I'm like, man. So that night, that was the hardest night of my life, knowing I hadn't jumped that fence. The next morning, I got up before anybody else did. I said, I know I can do this. Just take a deep breath, go back to the basics, you got this. So I proceeded to jump the fence. And I closed my eyes, and I leaped, and I jumped over the fence, and I landed. Listen, I celebrated. It was nobody out there but me and that fence. And I saw beyond the obstacle, because sometimes with the obstacle getting in the way, before the fence was getting taller and taller, but I saw myself, I had to see myself celebrating, had to see myself overcoming that already before it had happened. And I was about 14 years old. Why was that important to me? It wasn't in the cameras. ESPN wasn't there. The Hall of Fame committee wasn't there. The Olympic committee wasn't there. The NC2A, it was me and that fence. And I believe, without a doubt, that's the moment I started embracing my Olympic journey. I didn't make excuses. It wasn't peer pressure. It was something inside of me felt like, you know what, this is important. So when you know your why, it doesn't matter what it looks like to people, you pursue it. Because when you lose your why, you lose your way. And I believe that moment, that's where my confidence derived. I jumped over a fence. And that's the moment I started becoming who I eventually became. So that's where my confidence came from. And like Lenny said, it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight, but it has to start somewhere. I didn't know anything about the Olympics at 14, but I knew that jumping that fence was important. I knew what I did, jumping over a puddle of water and see who could do it the most in 30 minutes was important. That was my battlefield, our backyard, until I was able to see the bigger world. But it's a process, and those foundation, those moments are so important. And the last thing about that is that my dad would say often, if you take in life with you just a few principles, you won't have to carry a suitcase full of rules. And his principles were his faith, his attitude, and how hard he worked. Those three things nobody could ever take away from him. And not to sound too churchy, is that I know all of us on here and we doing what we do, but in Luke, it talks about, to whom much is given, much is required. And that's what I get every morning. To whom much is given, he's given me much. And so it's about giving back and about using our platform to really help impact the next generation. So that was sort of a long version, but that's that jumping that fence. So what is your fence? When I share, what is your fence? That moment changed my life forever.
Yeah, that's real right there. That's good stuff, because you're right. It starts with you, and no one else can take that from you, especially if you find it the way you did. CJ, specifically around this confidence conversation, and specifically building kids up, knowing that society will break them down as they get older, and certainly around a racial context, they will get attacked. So how did you all, and how did your father and your mother build you guys up to the point to where you were able to protect yourself and be insulated, not so much insulated, but be able to battle through the difficulty, certainly growing up in North Carolina?
Yeah, it's weird, Trennis, because it's crazy, because like my dad coached us. So he basically put the basketball in our hand and he taught us all the way through. But my mom was also right there, giving her input, what she calls it, and also staying on us. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, like we no video games during the week. We didn't get a chance to play video games during the week. So what they made us do when we got home from school, we did our homework, and they told us to go outside and work on our game. So it's basically like they told us, we're going to give you the tools. It's about what you do with those tools that'll get you to the next level. So we thank them for that. And they it's crazy because I see how my parents treat my nephew and my son, how they kind of baby him now. They baby them. And my mom used to push, like, he not hurting y'all, keep going. Like, it's crazy because, like, I work my nephew out sometimes and I push him. I push him like my dad pushed us. And I promise they are totally different people now.
Yeah, it's different. My father does the same thing, where it is the grandchild and your child are two different perspectives. So I'm with you there. So in terms of, CJ, you mentioned around, that the leagues that they put you all in and where you all ended up playing allowed you to interact with different, cultures, kids that look different than you, kids that came from different, spaces. Speak a little bit to you using and you having sports as the ability to build relationships with people that didn't look like you or didn't have your background.
It's crazy, Trennis, because like I said, we grew up in the suburbs of Winston-Salem. So all of our cousins played on the black Pop Warner team. Like, they played in the black program. And we played near our house, and it was the white program. So all of our friends would always say, man, y'all play with the white boys? And like, that was crazy to us because those are the people we saw every day. You know what I mean? We would only see family basically on the weekends. So it was weird because you getting all this from your family, like, y'all play in the white organization. But my thing was, if you ever get a job in corporate America or anywhere, you're going to have to deal with these people. So I'm glad my parents didn't take us and say, no, y'all got to go over there and play with the black kids. You know what I mean? Like, I think that helped us kind of navigate through life. I mean, I really, really feel like that because while we went to a predominantly white high school, I ended up going to Hampton University as a freshman and playing basketball there. So it was kind of a culture shock in school for me because I was in school the year before with, it might have been out of 25 kids in a class, it might be 4 or 5 to go into college when it's all blacks. You know what I mean? But I mean, I love that experience. I wouldn't trade it for the world. And then I had a chance to transfer into I would say, a more diverse university. Yeah.
And speaking of that, Lanny, around some of the leagues that you grew up playing in, why did you, especially the ones that you reflect on and you hold in the highest regard, why were those leagues so important, and what were the important pillars or tenets of those leagues that you felt like you you wanted to go and play in that league so bad?
Yeah, similar. I grew up playing in some of the more diverse leagues, mostly white, and I think from that foundational period of time, one of the things that you can see is that kids, before they become indoctrinated with the stuff from their parents or society or whatever the case may be, they're gonna be kids, and they're gonna love on and become friends with those people who share those common interests that they have. And so, me and some of my friends having this common love of basketball, we were friends before we even thought about whether we were black or white. We were like, hey, we both love ball, and that's what it was about. You know what I mean? And so I think that was one thing that kind of was established early on. The other thing is that you see that sports kind of puts you on a level playing field. You know what I mean? Like, regardless of what color you are, regardless of where you come from, if you can produce on that court, that's what mattered, And so some of the things that systemically are present in society that hold certain people back or that allow certain people to have certain privileges that others don't. When you on that court and we in between these lines, there's nothing that props me up or props you up. It's whoever's got it. You know what I mean? And so similar, a lot of my friends and family, you know, grew up inner city. And so I was back and forth as far as those courts that I played on. And that was the common denominator was, oh, Lanny can go. So whether I'm at Fondy in Third Ward or in the hood playing with the hood kids or whether I'm in the suburbs, that's all that mattered in between those lines. And so, yeah, that was big, you know, in the beginning. And then as I grew up, I went to an all-black high school, and then I went to University of Houston, which is one of the most diverse universities in the country. And those experiences of both white and black, really, to be honest, what it allowed me to see is there's good, bad, and ugly in both. You know what I mean? And so then you can't have these sweeping indictments on a group of people because you've experienced good, bad, and ugly on both sides. You know what I mean? And so I think that just kind of helped shape how I have navigated this world and how I, you know, navigate the people that I interact with.
Yeah, that's good stuff. That's really good stuff. Yeah, you're right. Around, if you have a relationship with someone, it's hard to hold a stereotype that's untrue. You know, that someone tells you. You know, it can be brushed off really easily that way. Ruthie, sports is often defined as, you know, one of the benefits of it is being part of something that's larger than yourself. Certainly, we're going through a unique season here with COVID-19 and racism and a lot of things happening at the same time. But please speak to the importance of being part of something that's larger than yourself and thinking about other people before you think of yourself, and why sports allowed that belief to kind of take hold.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, obviously sports is something that bridges the gap between so many generations through countries. I've been blessed, obviously, to play this game for about 25 years. And of course, I love the game, but it's the relationships. It is the mindset and the resilience that you get from sports. And so everything that I've learned in sports, I try to apply to real life. And really, when I go and talk to a basketball team or a volleyball team, I'm not going there to really, that sport is just one thing. It's so much bigger. I said, this experience is so much bigger than you. This opportunity is bigger than you. You either be history or make history. How do you leave your legacy? You know, there's a saying that I share with Isaiah Thomas, said that if all you can remember me as a basketball player, I've done a bad job with my life. There's so much bigger than this. Sports is a platform, but what can you do? How can you use this opportunity to bridge the gap? And I've been blessed to travel overseas for U.S. Embassy for about 10, 12 years and being able to connect with these other countries. I'm actually wearing, I go to a lot of Native communities. I actually have about 5 of these. I only have 2 today, but I go over there and I go there and they look at me like I'm walking on water. I'm like, I'm just an ordinary person that played the game. But they said, people like you don't come see us. This is in North Dakota, I know, South Dakota. I go there and I'm telling you, their opening ceremony was like the Olympics. I said, I feel like this is the best kept secret in the Midwest. But the point is that being there, sports brought me there. But being there and being able to, because we do, when you're in sports, they think that we have this special code in life, that we above them. But I think we use this influence. To me, using this platform, the Olympics, you know, the World Championship, the Hall of Fame, all of that stuff, it's like, man, how can I ever edify? I have a girls program called Aim High. And when I go in there, I say, I know y'all have seen the videos. How can I use what I've done to edify you? Because at the end of the day, if I can't encourage you to not drop out of school, if I can't elevate you to make you feel like you matter, the gold medals, the World Championship mean nothing to me. And I know that might sound cliche, but it's seriously, I have this passion for helping because I know I've been there. And so really being able to bridge the gap with what I've done with kids and it's so important. And so, and I've been on Zooms where we talk about, what is this? I said, there's something on the other side. There's faith on the other side of fear. There's more on the other side of less. There's courage on the other side of feeling hopeless. And I try to say, hey, you know what? Listen, it's as simple as this. Don't let your destination be your situation be your destination. And so I know with the pandemic, I said, you got to see, you got to tell yourself there's something on the other side. There's something on the other side of injustice. So really just giving them a mindset that, you know what, an optimistic mindset is that I believe. And that's how I was as a player. What we got to do now is get out the zone, get in the full court press. That's my mindset. Hey, forget about a zone. I ain't wait for you to miss and go down. I'm getting in a full court press and I'm trapping. That's the sense of urgency that I feel like now that we have to take. It's time to get off the sidelines, time to get out the locker room and come out and compete the second half. And that's what it's about. And to me, I love being in a space to do that. And that's what, you know, that I enjoy doing now since I retired about 12 years ago. But I'll play you one-on-one, CJ Paul. I got you. Let's play. No,
I'm retired.
no, I'm just playing though. But yeah, but it's fun. I know you got. Tell your brother what's up. Fun.
I will.
Did I hit something? Was that me? Okay. But anyway, but I love it. I think that sports is a beautiful, beautiful thing, and I'm just thankful to be able to use it as a platform to help bridge the gap between a lot of things.
And this conversation, and thank you, Ruthie, for that. You know, that's profound, and that's a word, as they would say. And I want all of you to answer this question, but you know, we talk about that energy that we need and that you all have had. What, you know, I'm not asking what you want white people to do to help fix racism generally, which is a tough question to answer. But what would you like coaches to do to create an environment for the young CJs, for the young Ruthies, for the young Lannys to feel comfortable in that space, especially if you are uniquely the only kid of color, to kind of create an environment to where that kid wants to be there and feels connected to the larger group?
Trennis, I would say the main thing is, I think, just getting to know these kids. Like get to know these kids aside from basketball. I mean, I think that's the number one thing. Like, you don't have to just know Carter, who is my son, just from basketball. Like, what else does he like to do? You know what I mean? What like, we go back and forth with this in our AAU program a lot, is we just figure out what more can we do to help these kids. You know what I mean? Because that's the thing. Like, you might coach him in basketball, but what does his sister like to do? What's her name? Like, I think just getting to know the kids more. Like, don't have him come to practice and then he leaves and he's the same way he was when he came to practice. Like, it just shouldn't be like that.
To kind of piggyback on what CJ is saying, I would say that for coaches and people who are in those positions, to truly look at these kids as more than athletes, right? Because you know, I've seen a couple of stories recently where some college coaches have come out and made statements, whether it was, you know, against the Black Lives Matter movement or whatever the case may be, and then some of their players, you know, came out and said, you know, I'm not playing for this coach unless they come out and correct this, or unless they, you know, see things differently. And I think the disconnect is some of those coaches only view those kids as players in their program who are helping to produce wins. You know what I mean? But if you actually see those athletes as people first and understand the totality of that person is not just what they do on that football field or on the basketball court. Okay, well, what is their home life like? What is the neighborhood where they're from? What is it like, and why is it like that? I mean, get to know the issues that they face, because I think what ends up happening on the flip side of being an athlete and being in sports, I think the problem with it is people see you separately than the rest of the Black folks. It's like, oh, you're an athlete, so you're different than the other Black people. And they don't understand that, no, we're the same. I'm blessed with this athletic ability. I'm able to do these things, but I still face the same things that everybody else faces because of the color of my skin, you know. And I've seen, especially, you know, we know how toxic social media can be, but I've seen a lot of times when guys like Chris Paul and LeBron James and Steph Curry, when they speak out about some of these social injustice issues, the first thing that people do to discredit them is, oh, well, you're in the NBA. You are superstar athletes, so why are you talking about these things? You're not being oppressed. And they don't understand, well, these people, one, haven't always been in the NBA. Two, they were Black before they were in the NBA, you know, so they still face some of these
Still
issues
Black.
before they, you know, they're exactly. And they're not just speaking for their own experiences. They're also speaking for the people who don't have the platform that they have. They're also speaking for those people who will never play in the NBA and have white people wearing their jerseys. You know what I mean? And so I think that's the part that maybe coaches can help influence is, okay, this kid can do this for me on the court, but also like, who is he as a person? What is he going through at home? What are his family? What are things that his family face? What are the issues that they face outside of just the game that they're playing? And I think that can help kind of merge that gap.
Yeah,
Ruthie.
that's so true. Great comments. Obviously coaches have always had a huge role. Now it is time now more than ever to look at these athletes or these young ladies or young men as people, and you got to have a conversation. You can't duck and hide. You can't, one of my friends wrote a poem about justice. Where are you? The blindfold has to come off. The curtain has come up. It is time now to, it's this incident that's happened 3 or 4 months ago took us back 100 years. But now we got to have a conversation. You can't pretend it doesn't exist. You got to have a conversation about it, and you can't be afraid. And I think that starts beyond the coaches, starts from the athletic department. There has to be a pivoting, a redirection, and the start is with a conversation. And it's not going to change overnight, but I think we start talking about it, and now discussing it, having a discussion. And I think that's very important. And I hope that, and I pray that during this time that these coaches and these schools are figuring out how can we, everybody has a role. Everybody has a role to play at this point. And so I think, like I said, communication, talking about it, I don't know, watching film, but just really you got to get in the game now, get in the game. And I think that, and like I said, what's going to beat all this is love and understanding. And I've heard people, I've been in a lot of discussions about, the Black Lives Matter, what are they doing? Is it too much? And I was in a very heated discussion. There was a discussion, we was there it was a faith-based setting. So we all said, we Christians, but it got heated. But I said, listen, it's about understanding that you got to, and one minister did a great job saying it's about walking a mile in your shoes. I don't ever condone wrongdoing. It doesn't matter who does it, but it's about understanding. And that's what I hope that the people in leadership position and that can take that role. So, I understand and I'm gonna do what I can to help. I was on a Zoom, a birthday Zoom, about 45 girls. All of us played for this coach. It was about 3 white girls and 42 Black. She said, I know I got more white friends than this. I only got 3 on the Zoom. It was all of us. And she was appreciating us being on the Zoom because I guess she might have figured that. I'm like, no, this is not. I said, we love you. You white, it doesn't matter. We know you've been white. You always gonna be white. But she said, you know what's gonna help is that me. I gotta step up. I gotta step up as a white woman that have coached you all, that love you. I gotta step up and do more. And I really admire that because it is gonna take a lot of our white friends to step up and say, you know what, this is wrong. We gotta have a conversation. We gotta do something. So obviously there's a lot of layers to it, but I think that stepping up, doing something, but first having a conversation about it and talking about it.
No, thank you for that. Yeah, like you said, it's going to take everybody. I think everybody has a role in this, and that if you feel like it's not you or it's too uncomfortable, then you end up being part of the problem, right? Because I think at this point, you're either with it and trying to advance things, or you're actively battling it. And we're all making those conscious decisions right now. Speaking to supporting the kids that are in this, right? Like we often say that racism is older and it's going to die off when these people pass. And I think anybody that's being honest around this space knows that that's not the truth. How do we pour into and empower these young kids that are seeing this stuff on TV? They're still in the youth leagues, and they're trying to play through it, but they don't know what to do. How do we empower these young kids, even, you know, all kids, but specifically the kids of color that are seeing this and don't know what to do with it?
I say educate them. I love what Lanny said earlier with, you know, not all white people are bad. Not all black people are good. There's good and bad in both. So I think just educating the youth and you know, answering their questions, like, because they all got questions, and we just got to be there to answer their questions and kind of help them navigate through this thing.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, same thing. I think if you can create an environment where they can feel comfortable asking those questions, and so that they can be answered, I think that's important. But one thing is, like you said, Trennis, is recognizing that idea that it's just going to fade away with the next generation, understanding that that's not what's happening, and it's not what has happened in this country. I mean, if you think about, you know, it seems as though sports has always been on the forefront of being more inclusive, but then you still have those microcosms of society, and you see what goes on. So from Jackie Robinson being accepted to play, you know, in Major League Baseball, but then he couldn't stay in the same hotels as his teammates. You know what I mean? Or he couldn't eat in the same restaurants as his teammates. So, but then fast forward to today, man, I can't remember the name of the soccer player, but before all this pandemic stuff started, I remember this big thing about him being upset because fans were throwing bananas at him on the soccer field. So you're talking back from Jackie Robinson to 2020, there's still that same element that exists, right? And so I think that, you know, especially with the coaches, having these hard conversations with the kids at an early age, I think can help them with asking some of those questions, with understanding that this person that is my teammate, you know, his life and the life of his family and the life of people that look like him matter, and I should, speaking as a teammate, I should take on having some of those hard conversations and standing up when I hear wrongdoing being said or racist comments being said. This is my teammate, and I know what type of person he is, so I need to step up for my teammate outside of the court, outside of the field. I've got to step up for my teammates off of the court and off of the field as well. So I think those are all things that have to be done, because we can't expect time to pass and think that racism is going to end with another generation. Because at the same time that we're all trying to pass down love, those people who are hating are also passing down that hate. So we've got to be even stronger in what we're trying to pass down.
That's great. And as part of that, I want to bring into the conversation Renee Montgomery, who just joined us. Renee is a national champion. She is a WNBA champion. She is from West Virginia. She is currently on the Atlanta Dream in the WNBA, but has chosen to sit out this year to focus in on social injustice. And so, Renee, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry I'm late. What up, Ruthie?
You owe me 10 push-ups, girl. 10 push-ups.
Oh, goodness. Sorry, my apologies. What up, CJ, Lanny? Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for being here, and certainly we're gonna throw you in the deep end here with the question. So certainly, your decision to sit out is a sacrifice, and it wasn't done when you just woke up one morning. You know, speak to your thought pattern around why you felt like this is such a big important decision, and why you made the decision you did.
Yeah, so, you know, there were a string of tragedies that happened it seemed like in a row when everyone was sitting still watching it. And you couldn't even believe that the next one was happening, because we're still mad about the last one. And I keep on saying why we're sitting still, because I think that played a big factor. I think that the pandemic, everything going on with the pandemic, you didn't have any other choice but to just watch the TV, like, what is going on? So I don't think I'm any different than anyone else that watched any of those videos. It affects you. Once you see that type of hate, it just does something to you. So for me, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I opted out. But I had just talked to my parents. I talked to my parents probably 2 weeks before I even opted out. And I was just telling them my thought process, and like, I just don't, my mind was not there for basketball. Even when I'm training, I'm thinking about what can I do on the outside. And so my parents were like, just pray on it. I was born and raised in the pews. So of course they told me to just chill out, pray on it. And if I still feel the same way, they said, of course they support me 100%. So once I had the kind of go ahead from my family, I talked to the head coach, Coach Nikki Collin. Once I had everyone's kind of approval, not that I needed it, but I wanted to get it because, they gave me a contract. I earned my contract, but when somebody bets on you, I didn't want to just leave him out to dry. So I wanted to talk it over with my coach. But, all those things led me to opt out on June 18th, when I didn't have to opt out until June 30th, but I just knew.
That's amazing. And I think it's also an example of why specifically WNBA has been the leader, not a leader, but the leader in this space. And that's not just this year, that's from a long time ago. Yeah. So certainly Ruthie and Renee, please speak to what are we missing that we need more of that y'all have, that specifically WNBA players in the community that support the league?
I'll let Ruthie, you got to let the legends lead the way. Ruthie, you take it first.
You know what? I tell you, I'm passing it to you though, but to me, I'm just thankful for the platform that we've been given. And there is a lot. It's a different time now. I can't believe it's been 12 years since I played. Oh my goodness. But handed to someone like you, Renee, I'm so proud of you. I've always admired you as a player and your team mentality and your leadership and you have this presence about you, and now you displaying it in this way. I'm not surprised because you're a class act and you're gonna be a future legend. So I want you to take it from here.
I would say thank you. First of all, wow, thank you. Y'all got to send me this clip because I'm posting it everywhere. But I would just say with women's basketball, we're used to being the minority. We're females playing in a male-dominated sport, and then we're Black females. So we have the double whammy, as we would call it. So we're just used to being discriminated against. So when we see something, we say something. I think that's just the main thing. We've been in that position, So I think that a lot of WNBA players are more apt to speak out, is just because they've probably been in that position before, me, myself, or any of the other players. And so we feel a need to speak out for people that maybe don't have a platform or voice.
Yeah. And CJ and Lanny, want y'all to jump in, even around sports. Lanny, you mentioned it a bit where, sports, though it hasn't been the perfect pace, or the perfect place to make change, it certainly has been making significant change if you're comparing it to the larger society. So, why has sports been able to do that thing that somehow society can't really get past?
You know what? I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm torn on that because I don't know if it's a good thing. And what I mean by that is, when I spoke earlier about sometimes athletes being viewed as different than the rest, like you're different than the other Black people. I think there's a subconscious thing that happens with people when they get caught up in the celebrity of athletes, right? And they do begin to separate that from other people. And the problem I have with that is, I see, and sorry I'm gonna wrap this up, but I see a question that was asked in this chat, and it says that they are trying to discern the support for Black Lives Matter while also trying to understand some of the politics being associated with the Black Lives Matter organization, and they have confusion around that. And how do they, as a coaching staff, address the youth with that, right? And so, my thing is this. Black Lives Matter, we're not talking about an organization. We're talking about the statement that our lives matter. That's not a political statement. It's literally a statement of humanity. And so if you understand the history of this country, and so many ways systemically that we have been shown that our lives have not mattered. I don't think there should be confusion around that statement. And to your question, Trennis, it seems as though the athletes, when we're athletes, our lives matter to them because of our athletic gifts, sorry about that, because of our athletic gifts. And I think that that's a problem. Don't look at me because I'm an athlete and you care about who I am and you care about my life, but as just a regular Black man, my life doesn't matter. You know what I mean? And so sports is great, but in this country, Black people have always been able to be put on a pedestal if we were a form of entertainment.
Mhm.
And I think that's where it crosses that line of that athlete being an entertainer that they are entertained by. And so they're cool with accepting the entertainment. They're cool with cheering on Chris Paul when he crosses somebody up or LeBron when he dunks on somebody. But then the moment they speak out about, hey, my Black life matters, then you see those same people who were fans of their athletic achievement are turning on them, you know, because they're talking about the fact that their life and other Black lives matter. And so I think that the power of sports is the platform that it gives us to address those issues. I don't know that sports necessarily changes them, but it gives those people that platform to address them.
Wow. I want to comment real quick.
Yeah, please. No, yeah, go ahead.
Lenny, great point. Really, I have never seen, here from that view you gave, it really makes sense because it does. It seems like it puts us in a place of, okay, you play sport, you're more important than just what you've done, more important than who you are as an individual. So great point. And I know it's a sort of a border thin line, but and that's unfortunate that's their perspective. But now what we got to try to do is flip the script on it. We got to try to use this platform, the voice, because they won't hear somebody else saying it's not a big deal, but we're saying it. So we have to sort of like still make a real loud sound with where we are. And it's unfortunate is that perspective in that way. But like I said, good point. But I believe if we speak loud enough and we stay firm and we speak up, we don't stand by is that if someone make negative comments or mistreat someone, we can't stand by like the police did in Minnesota. We got to speak up, even if it's someone that might not be an athlete or in that platform like us, because everybody does matter. It's not about what you do, it's about who you are. We all have our own set of fingerprints. So we all matter, and that's very important. So great point.
And Lanny, I'll piggyback on what you said, because while they say athletes are up here, they still Black and they still get treated like normal people. Like I know y'all probably saw when Sterling Brown got arrested. That had to be 2 or 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. Like the cops treated him like he was an ordinary Black guy.
Yeah.
Same with Bradley Beal. And it's going on. We just don't hear about it.
Right. No, and that's
Please,
Renee. Yeah.
I was gonna say, Jimmy Butler, he kind of hit on exactly what we're talking about. When people asked him, well, why aren't you putting stuff on the back of your jersey? And why aren't you putting your name? He's like, because I want you to understand when I leave the court and I walk off the court, I'm a Black man in America. And that's what you guys need to come to grips with. And that basically sums up everything we're talking about, because people, a football coach in Texas, I forget his name, he said, they'll cheer for my guys on Saturday night football, but on Sunday they don't want them to date their daughters. And it's that difference in that duality. Yeah. It's that difference in that duality. Like, yes, we love you as the athlete, but whoa, we don't want you at the dinner table. So it's those two things that athletes, we feel it. Like we can feel that. We can feel that, we're fine to be at the dinner table if it's just we're hanging because they're hanging with their athlete then. But it's that difference when we're not just the athlete, that's the problem that a lot of athletes have a problem with.
And to last question I have for everybody, I want everybody to answer this question. I know I'm personally struggling with just the energy around this space, right? What do I do with my time, and how do I redirect some of this negativity and all of this negativity into something that's useful for me and useful for my little girl and useful for my family? what would you tell a younger version of yourself viewing this, seeing this? You know, how do you make a kid? Because we speak, at least with PCA, we talk about, you know, how this is a traumatic experience. There's trauma here with these kids, and they don't maybe have the words, you know, the eloquence for us that we have to share how they're feeling. You know, so what would you tell a younger version of yourself that is watching this, you know, this happen, and wondering if their life matters or not, and how do they redirect that energy? And we'll start, you know, anywhere you want to.
Okay, I'll start. I would just say I tell young kids, you know, you typically hear people say things get better before they get worse. So right now it might look crazy, it might look bad, but that's because the good is coming. You know, you see things have to get, when things are getting rebuilt, when something is under construction, it doesn't look so pretty, you know? And right now, America, the climate of America, our communities, our society, we are under construction. Like, it's about to be a whole different way of living. You know, LeBron James said this is a lifestyle, and I'm going to start adopting that. It's not a movement, because movements might end. I do really believe, I firmly believe that this time, this is a lifestyle change. So we're under construction. America's under construction. Our culture in America, everything is under construction, but things get worse before they get better.
So, Trennis, I'm channeling my energy a little bit into basically changing these kids' mindset. These kids really feel like they got to go to the Blue Bloods, the PWIs, in order to make it to the NBA. So what I'm doing is I'm channeling all of my energy into that space. So what I've started doing is my AAU coaches, I'm doing Zoom calls every Tuesday night with 4 HBCUs, just getting my coaches to know more about these HBCUs, just so they can educate the kids. And I'm telling every HBCU coach I talk to, now it's time to recruit these kids, because they have the kids' ear now, which I think could change, you know, the landscape of college basketball forever.
I'm gonna jump in, let Lenny in, but I think I definitely echo what Montgomery and CJ said. I think that there's a lot of stuff about this that we can't control, and these kids, you know, my 8-year-old and my 11-year-old, when we watched the thing that happened, they said, why couldn't he just pick them up, put them in the car, and, you know, I said, you know what? She said that, and then when they hear about the racism, she said, that is so dumb. I said, racism is ignorance. I said, but what we gonna do? We gonna see what we can control. I said, can you control your attitude every day you get up? She said, yes. I said, we're gonna find a miracle every day. I said, in spite of us, we were hearing so much stuff about how bad it is. I said, we're gonna find a miracle every day. So I asked my kids, what is your miracle today? And my son, I woke up and the Lord, I can breathe new oxygen. I said, okay, that's a miracle. I said, miracle is that he said, I'm listening better. Clean my room up. So finding that little miracle in these kids and letting them see, sort of like take it in dosage, that's what I'm doing. I'm definitely within myself, just trying to do a self-inventory of my life and what I've done, what can I do better, so that I can be better. You know, it'd be like when we all fly, put your mask on first, then put your mask on your kids. So do a self-inventory, because I say, you know what, to come out on the other side of this pandemic, to come out on the other side of this injustice, to not be a better person would be a waste of time. So how can we make this time? And so I would say just do things that we try to do, but we're too busy to do. So I've done Zoom. I think I'll do 4 or 5 Zooms a day, but I want to, like, what can I say to help encourage the young kids? I do a lot of team Zooms. And what I tell athletes, don't be sitting around thinking, like, oh, this is a horrible year, this and that. How about what are you doing in this time? Are you getting stronger? Are you working on your diet? Are you working on your game? So that when the time ready, you'll be ready. So from a sports standpoint, when I talk to athletes, be ready, practice, get better. And then from my family standpoint, I ask my kids, find a miracle in every day.
Man, I think for me, what I would tell my younger self is to not allow the anger from seeing what's happening to sit and grow inside of you, you know, without trying to channel it into a positive direction. You know what I mean? Because I think it's very easy to witness and see everything that's going on and experience everything that's going on, and then become angry and allow that anger to turn into hate. And we know that that's not going to be the resolution. For us, I think we have to do similar to what CJ talked about doing. We have to make sure that we can build up ourselves, build up our own, and not depend on somebody else treating us the way that we want to be treated, and giving us the space and the platforms that we want. Sorry, this sounds like such a shameless plug, but I know you mentioned Active Faith, but one of the things that I've done in the midst of this pandemic, when I'm getting ready for the rollout and launch of Actively Black, which is a Black sportswear brand where, we're hiring Black, we're making sure Black women have opportunities in the spaces of design and marketing and places that in some of these other companies, they've been denied that, you know what I mean? And so I have friends that work at Nike, that work at Adidas, that work at Under Armour, and they've all expressed that these big brands profit off of our culture. But then when you go and you look at the C-suite or you look at the decision-making positions, you don't see any of us in those positions, you know what I mean? And so one of the things that I decided to do was I'm going to take this anger and I'm going to use it to create. So I'm going to create something out of this anger that can benefit our people. You know what I mean? I went to the University of Houston and I love the experiences that I had there, but man, in this current climate, I really wish that I was one of those kids who was a top ranked kid who had the foresight to say, you know what, I'm going to go to a HBCU, you know what I mean? And so I would tell my younger self that, you know what I mean? And that's something that I would encourage some of these younger top ranked kids to do as well. So it's not anti anybody else. It's just pro building us up, because the images that we're seeing and the experiences that we're having can beat you down mentally and emotionally. And so we have to be active in building up ourselves and building up our own communities, and witnessing everything that we're seeing.
Amen.
And that is a perfect way to end our conversation. It lasted. It didn't last long enough, but I think the points that y'all made are amazing. My brothers, CJ and Lanny, man, y'all are family. It's amazing how our relationship has grown and where we are right now, and I'm really, really grateful for y'all joining us today. Renee and Ruthie, I look up to y'all. You guys are leaders in this space, and I hope my little girl has it's my job to make sure that my little girl becomes the women that you all are. And so I really appreciate y'all being here and being able to have this conversation. I know sometimes it's not comfortable, and some people struggle with having that conversation, especially publicly, and you guys have that intestinal fortitude to do that, and I think lives have been changed because you've been willing to do that. So I'll kick it to my esteemed colleague Marty Reed to close this out.
Thank you so much, Trennis. Wow, that was such an amazing conversation. I'm encouraged and inspired. I mean, sports do define, unify, and empower, and empowering, starting young is so important, and having a strong foundation is important in the trajectory of a child's life. But we all know that not every kid is blessed to have a strong home foundation. So we are calling on you, coaches, admin, leaders, to do your best to get to know your athletes beyond the playing field, to like CJ mentioned, creating an atmosphere where every child feels seen and valued and heard, where they know that they belong, and that's not, something that you question. And like Lanny mentioned, creating an environment where kids are feeling comfortable to ask questions, and us being willing to have these important and sometimes uncomfortable conversations, because the future and seeing positive change depends on it. So, we talked about sports amplifying, the importance of being a part of something bigger than ourselves. And when sports are done right, we are able to come together, we're able to play together, we're able to elevate each other with a common goal, and we have to do that beyond the playing field. And like Ruthie mentioned, there's courage on the other side of injustice. There's healing on the other side of discrimination. And like Renee, who has, chosen to make a sacrifice and use her platform to be a voice for the voiceless, being willing to stand up for what's right. We all can do that. And I appreciate everyone for tuning in today. The youth are watching and they are learning from us. So a huge thank you again to our panelists, Lanny Smith, Ruthie Bolton, CJ Paul, and Renee Montgomery for your time and your experiences and your expertise. Trennis and I and Positive Coaching Alliance, we appreciate you all so much. And for all those that tuned in today, if you're wanting to learn more about Positive Coaching Alliance or bring PCA workshops or Zoom workshops to your program or schools, please visit our website at positivecoach.org and follow us on social media at Positive Coach US. And we hope to see you soon at the next roundtable. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much.
Guys.
Montgomery, call me, girl. You got my
Okay, I
number.
got you. I don't have your number. Can y'all connect us? Sorry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Happy to do it. Happy to do it.
Guys.
Thank you.
See y'all.
Thank you.